Gina. Today I am going to show you how to make a flat spiral bracelet. Now this is a beginner-friendly stitch that most people learn at the very start of their beading hobby. I still visit this stitch, even though it is one of the first stitches I learned. I still visit this stitch simply because it turns out beautiful every single time. There are tons of tutorials on YouTube doing the flat spiral stitch, so many of you may already know this stitch. However, I do my endings and my tacking down of the first two loops a little bit differently than some of the other tutorials that you will see. I've devised a different way to do that. So it might be worth a look at, even though you know how to do this stitch already. This is with the beads in the Enchanted Jewels Treasure Bag. However, they're very common beads, very common sizes and shapes, and this particular stitch will work with most anything you have in your stash. So it's worth having a look at regardless if you have the bag or not, and it's always worth a revisit if you already know how to do it, because as I said, it's a beautiful stitch. It always turns out just so impressive and so gorgeous. Let me go ahead and put this on, see if I can do it on camera. If not, I will come back with it on. Let me see. And there we have it. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the wrist, and let me show you the clasping. It's just a really pretty bracelet, and I think the colors scheming turned out really nice. And I hope you stay tuned, and let's get started looking at what we'll need for this particular bracelet and then get to work. Okay. For this project today, we will be using some of the beads found in the Enchanted Jewels Treasure Bag. However, these are very common sizes and shapes of beads, and this is a very basic beginner stitch. So you should be able to accomplish this project with things that you have on hand or can easily get. So what we're going to be using is an 8x6 rondelle, and you have a strand of these in your treasure bag if you have one. And this is just a light green translucent rondelle. Then we're going to be using some 3mm round beads. Now these were found in the treasure bag. They're rose gold colored, non-magnetic, synthetic hematite beads. That's a mouthful. But you can use a 3 or 4mm bicone. You could also use a fire polished bead, or you could just use a 3 or 4mm round bead also. You may have to adjust the amount of seed beads you put on either side, but it should work regardless. So talking about seed beads, I'm using an 11-0 in dark bronze, and I'm using just a few 8-0s in the rose gold tone. These are both Toho seed beads. Then we will be using a toggle clasp, and this one came in the Enchanted Jewels Treasure Bag also, but you do not have to use that particular clasp. You can use any clasping that you would like. Then I am going to be using some 10-pound Nanofil. You can also use 8-pound Nanofil, or you can use 6-pound Fireline. Any of those threads will work just fine. I'm using a size 12 beading needle. A size 10 will also work for this project, and you will put a wingspan of thread onto your needle. So that's when you put your arms out to your side like the wings, like you're going to fly away. You measure from the fingertips of your first arm, the length of that arm across your chest, the length of your second arm, and to your fingertips on that arm. And then you thread your needle, and we will get started. Okay, to start this project, I do a little bit different than the way most people start a traditional flat spiral. So I'm going to show you the way I do it. I put the clasping on, and then I tack down the first 2 rows, and then I proceed. So this is how we're going to do this. We're going to pick up 4 8-0 seed beads onto our needle, and we're going to bring it down to the end of the thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, but enough to hold on to. And then you're going to go up through the first 2 8/0 seed beads, hold on to the tail, hold on to those 2 8/0 seed beads, and then pull your thread through. Pull until you have a small loop, and then pull on the tail and the working thread and drag those together like this. Get you just a little closer, and then you're going to sew back through these two to secure them a little bit so that we can work through them without them falling apart. So we're coming out of this one, we're going to go directly into these two on the opposite side. And then we're going to go back up through the first two. So it spreads out and does all kinds of weird stuff till we get this other stitch. So just go up into these two on this side. And then you can give a little tug on the tail and the working thread and draw them together. Then we are going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead and one of our accent beads. So I'm using a 4mm or a 3mm round, excuse me. You can use a fire polish bead, you can use a bicone, you can use whatever you would like. Then I'm going to just drop those down to my piece, and I'm going to pick up my clasping end, and I'm going to use the round end of my toggle, and I'm going to bring it down to my piece, go through it and bring it down, and then go through the accent bead, the 3mm round bead, and I am going to pull my thread through and draw the clasp down to the piece, just like this. And then I'm going to pick up another 11/0 seed bead so that I can attach the other side of the 8/0 seed beads. So once you pick that up, then we're just going to go through the other side. So let me arrange this, it's arguing with me. All right, so I've gone through this side, now I'm going to go through this side of the 2 8/0s. I'm going to hold on to it and just pull that down, just like that. Now we're going to sew through this entire thing again to secure it, and then when we put our first unit on, we'll sew up through it again. So we'll have several passes of thread through the clasping. So we're coming out here, we're going to cross over, go into the beads on this side, and we're going to go into the 2 8/0s, the 11/0, and the 3mm round, and then through the clasp. And pull our thread through. And then we're going to go back down into the 3mm round. You're coming out of your clasp, go into the 3mm round, go into the beads on the opposite side from which you just sewn through. So just like this. And pull this through. I seem to have developed a knot in my thread. Let me pull that out, a little slip knot. And there we go. Now, I would like to cut this tail down just a little bit to get it out of my way. And then I can burn the rest of it down in a minute. But this is what I have so far. Now, if you pick up your piece, you will see, put your tail aside, there's a little thread bridge in between these 2 8/0 seed beads on the bottom here. You're going to bring your needle underneath that thread bridge. Pull your thread until you make a small loop, and then go through that loop, and then you're just going to drag a knot down on that thread bridge in between the 2 8/0 seed beads. That has now centered your thread. I am going to get rid of my little tag of my tail. I'm just going to get my flame close and just kind of burn it down. Or don't light it on fire, just melt it so that it curls in. And then now I am situated in the center of my clasping unit. I can drop down my core beads. So on this particular pattern or this particular stitch, you will work through core beads and then you will make loops around them. The 8x6 rondelles will be your core beads, and we'll start with 2. So we're going to pick up 2 of our core beads, drop it down, and then we are going to pick up 4 11/0 seed beads, and then one of our accent beads. So this is my 3mm round, and then 4 11/0 seed beads onto your needle. Just like this. Now we are going to go into this 8/0 seed bead. So we're just going to ignore the two 8x6s. We're going to go into the two 8/0s, the 11/0 above it, the 3mm round, and then into your clasp like this. And if you have to, you can come out the 3mm round, then go into the clasp. But you want to attach this to the entire unit here. So now we're just going to pull all this down, and we're going to situate it to where those core beads come back center, and then you have a loop around them on one side. Now, as we come back, we're going to come back through this side, and then we're going to put our loop on the other side. So now we're going to go down into the 3mm round, and it's a little tight, so you kind of have to move your clasping out of the way. Go down into the 3mm round, the 11/0, and the two 8/0s, and just exit after the 8/0s. Now at this point, just kind of pull everything straight, and then pick up 4 11/0 seed beads, and then your accent bead, and then 4 11/0 seed beads. Come here. Like this. Then we are going to one more time go up through these two core beads, and then you can go up into the other side of the 8/0s. So we came through this side last time. We're going to go up through this side of the two 8/0s, and then I'm going to exit because it's hard to get through all of them at this point. So now I have my loop. I'm coming out of my 8/0 seed beads. I'm now going to go up into my 11/0 and my 3mm round and exit. And then I will go through the back of my clasp here. And then I'm going to come back down through the 3mm round one more time. And this is why you want a fairly small thread, so that you can do all these passes. And I'm just going to come through the 3mm round, the 11/0, and the two 8/0s on this side. Pull it through, and then I'm going to go down through the two core beads. So I'm going into the 8x6 rondelles, and pull your thread through. And that is the beginning stage here. And we'll be right back and do the next stage. I've lost my needle. Let me rethread it. Okay, so now we're all set up and we're ready to do the body of our bracelet. So we have our clasping on, and the next thing we're going to do is, instead of picking up two core beads from this time on, we're going to pick up one, and then we're going to make our loops through the previous one and the one we've just picked up. So we'll still be working through two core beads, but now we're just going to add one at a time. So I've dropped one of my core beads on, and then my loops will be exactly the same. I'll pick up 4 11/0 seed beads, then I will pick up a 3mm round and 4 11/0 seed beads onto my needle. And this is what I have. Now I am going to ignore the one I just put on and go up through the previous bead. So just go into this previous bead here, and then go into your new bead. So you can hold on to it and just hold that bead up so you can go through both of them at the same time. And then just pull this down. And now you have a loop encasing the two newest beads, or the two lower beads. Now we're going to pick up 4 11/0 seed beads and a 4mm round and 4 11/0 seed beads onto our needle. You can drop them down, and then we're going to go into the two beads that we worked around on this side on the opposite side. So go into that first or the second bead on your piece, and then go into your new bead. So the previous bead and the new bead. Pull this down. Now, for this particular stitch, these first two loops that we've put on like to flop around and do weird things. Usually at the very end of your bracelet, you'll come back and tack these down. I am going to tack them down now and show you how to do that, and then we're going to work the rest of our bracelet. That way that's all done, and then all we have to do when we're finished is put the other end clasping on and tack those two down. We won't have to come back and do this end. So I'm going to get you in really close. This is really an easy process. We're coming out of this 8x6 rondelle. We're going to go through these first 4 11-0s on the loops you just created. So on one of your new loops, you're going to go through those and exit your accent bead. Then pull your thread through, and on the loop behind it, the first loop you created, you're going to go through the first 11-0 in front of your accent bead. So my 3mm round, I'll just go through that 11-0, and then I'll go through the 3mm round, and then I will go through all 4 of these 11-0s on this side. That will tack those two together, and they won't float around at the end. Then we're going to go down through the 8x6s again, and you're just going to go down through all 3 of them, just like this, and pull your needle through. Then we're going to go through the other side and do the exact same thing. So we're going to go up through the first 4 11-0 seed beads, into the 3mm round, pull your thread through, then go into the loop behind it and go into the first 11-0 seed bead right in front of your accent bead. So right in front of my 3mm round, I will go into this 11-0 and then the 3mm round, and then all 4 of the 11-0s above it. And if you can't get them all at once, you can always come back and get the ones you missed. So just like this, pull it through, go down your 3 8x6s. And now your end is completely prepared, and you do not have to come back at the end of the bracelet and mess with it, put clasping on, do anything. You are prepared, and now we can just move through the stitch. The stitch is very simple. You will always pick up a core bead and drop it down to your piece. And then you'll pick up your loop beads. So we'll pick up 4 of our 11-0s, and then we'll pick up a accent bead. So that's my 3mm round, and then my 4 11-0 seed beads. Now you will probably have to extend thread during this project, so I will leave a link so that you can figure out how, if you do not know how, you can learn how to extend your thread during this project. So now I have my loop, and I have my new core bead. I will go up to the previous core bead and go through the top of it. And sometimes the faceting on this kind of gets to you, but you can get through. It just sometimes takes a little manipulation. Then I like to just push my beads back up, go through the new core bead, and then just pull this all together. Then we have to do the other side. So we're just going to pick up 4 11-0 seed beads. Come here. And your accent bead. Like I said, that can be anything. You can do this with any type of little, you can use a little crystal, you can use whatever you want, a little pearl. This is highly adaptable stitch. Then we're just going to drop these down. So I have my 4 11-0s, my accent bead, my 4 11-0s, and then I have to come back up through the 2 rondelles, the last 2. So I'll go through this one, down through the one that I just put on, and pull this straight. And there's my next stitch. Now I will pick up my next 8x6 rondelle, drop it down, and I will pick up my loop beads. So I've got my core bead on, then I pick up my loop beads. So I pick up 4 11-0s, my accent bead, and 4 11-0s. Then I drop these down to my piece. It's easiest if you just kind of hold on to that rondelle and then go through the first one. And like I said, the facets on these ones, plus I sew really tight, but the facets on these ones kind of get me. I have to finagle it a little bit to get through, but once I get through, it's no big deal. Then I just pop the other one on and pull this down. And once you have the first side on, it's much easier to do the second loop. Not that it's hard to do the first one, it just takes a little bit more finagling. And then we're going to pick up 4 more. So I've got 4 11-ohs, my accent bead, 4 11-ohs, and then I will pick up my piece. And it's best to kind of keep laying down your piece, keep your piece on one side. You do not want it to flip over as you're working on it, because you want all of these loops to go over the top of the previous one. And if you flip your piece over and put a loop on, then your loops are not going to be uniform and they're not going to look good or lay correctly. So now we're coming out of this bead, we're going to go up into the last 2 core beads, your new bead and your previous bead, and pull this down. And from this point, it's just completely repetitious. A core bead, and then you put your loops on either side, making sure that you go into the previous bead after you put your first loop on and the new bead, and then on the second loop you go through both beads and just continue the stitch exactly how we've been doing it until you have 23 units. And you just count your units by counting your big 8x6 bead. And I have 23 of them, or 6.5 inches from the center of my toggle here. I'm measuring about 6.5 inches, which is an inch short of the length I want to accomplish. I want to have about a 7.5 inch bracelet. So no matter what length you want, just make as many units as you need until you are an inch short of the actual length that you want. A small bracelet would be 6 to 6.5 inches. A medium bracelet would be 7 to 7.5 inches. I'm so sorry. And a large would be closer to 8 inches, perhaps 8.5. So now that I have my 23 units, I am going to need to make one more unit with a bead and then make my clasping end like this. So this is a little bit different, like I said, than the traditional type, but it will all be done when you're done. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up one more of our core beads and drop it down just like we've been doing. Then we're going to pick up 4 8/0 seed beads and drop them down to the 8x6 rondelle. Then we are going to go into the 8x6 again, ignoring the 4 8/0s. Go into the 8x6 and the 8x6 on the bracelet, the previous one. So you're going into 2 of them. Pull down all of your thread, pull it through tightly, and it should end up with your beads lined up on top of each other, just like on the other end, just like this. Now that you are through those beads, you are going to pick up 4 11/0 seed beads. So you're going to make your loop. We're going to pick up 4 11/0 seed beads, and then a accent bead, and then 4 11/0 seed beads onto your needle, just like this. Then what we are going to do is we are going to go into the 8/0 seed bead on this side, the 2 8/0s. So we're just going to bypass that rondelle, and we're going to go into these 2 8/0s. Because they are not tight, it can kind of pull apart a little bit. So just go as gently as you can up through them like this, and then pull this down. Now we're going to secure these 8/0s together so that they are easier to work through and more stable. So I'm just going to arrange my thread. I'm coming out of these 2 8/0s. I'm going to go into these 2 8/0s on the other side here. Pull my thread through, and then I'm going to go back up through the previous 2, just like this. and pull my thread through. Arrange them, tighten your thread, make them look nice, and then pop back over into the 2 previous 8-ohs. So we're coming out of these 2, we're just going to go into this side now. Now we are going to pick up our, we're going to pick up 4 11-ohs, and we're going to pick up our accent bead and 4 11-ohs. And we're going to skip this rondelle and go into this one on this side, the previous one, just like we've been doing. So I'm just going to hold on to it, and I'm going to go up through 2 rondelles. And I'm just going to exit right in front of those 8-ohs. Just like this. Now I have my other loop. Now we're going to sew and put them together, and then we're going to come up and put our clasping on. So what we have to do is we have to sew down into, let's see, do I want to go down first or do I want to? Okay, we're going to go down into the 4 11-ohs here and through the 3mm round right here. And then you're going to find the 11-oh in front of the 3mm round on the loop behind the one that you are now coming out of. So you're going to go into the 11-oh right above that 3mm round, into the 3mm round also, like this, and then into the 4 11-ohs behind it, just like this. Then you're going to come up through 3 8-oh or 8x6s. So you're coming out right here, you're going to go right up into that bead and pull it through. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Then we'll be tagged down and we'll be ready to put on our clasping. So now we're just going to go into, we're coming out of this 8x6, we're going to go into the 4 11-ohs and into the 3mm round on the loop on this side. And exit that 3mm round. I keep calling it a 4mm round. Ignore me. It's the 3mm round. And pull through. Then we're going to look at the loop behind it, and right where we're going to go in is the 11-oh right above the 3mm round. We're going to go into that 11-oh, ignoring the 3 before it, and then go into the 3mm round, and then go into all the 4 11-ohs on the other side. And I can't get through all of them, so I'll come back and go through that. So I'm just going to pull my thread through. Make sure that it comes through nice, just like that. Now these 2 are tacked together, and you can go into that little, whatever 11-ohs you missed, go into them. And then just go back up through 3 8x6 rondelles. So the one that you're coming out right at the bottom of, you're going to go up through that one and the 2 above it. Now your bracelet is completely prepared. You don't have to come back and tack down the ends and put on your clasping on the other side. All you have to do now is put your clasping on here. So we're going to come up through these 2 8-ohs on this side. We're coming out of the rondelle. Let's go up through these 2 8-ohs. Then we're going to pick up 2 11-ohs on this side. Just because this is a really broad bracelet, I want to make sure that it's going to be thin enough for me to use my clasping well. So I'm going to pick up 2 11-ohs on this side and then my 3mm round. Sometimes when you have a really broad bracelet, this end of your toggle will not go through the round end because the broadness of your bracelet will block it. So what we're doing is we're narrowing this, making it longer so that it will work better. If you don't feel that you need that, if you have a bigger toggle, then you're fine. But this is a small toggle, so I'm going to drop 2 11-ohs and my 4mm or my 3mm round. I'm going to go through the loop on my toggle end, and then I'm just going to go through this 3mm round, hold on to it and pull. Make sure I don't lose my thread again. I've had an issue with that lately. And then I'm going to have to connect the other side of the 8/0s to this. So I have to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads, drop them down, and then go into the 2 8/0s on this side. Right here. And then just pull it all together so it's nice and neat like this. And now you have a nice extended end so that you can clasp better. It also makes your bracelet a little bit longer, so I may end up with a little bit longer bracelet. Let's go ahead and measure it and see so that you will know how to judge it. I design these as I do them, so it's kind of the end result. I am right at 7.5 inches, so I've only gained an inch. So we are doing, I guess I should show you. So we are doing fine with that. You actually measure from the center of the toggle and then to the end of this one. So I'm even slightly under 7.5. So this is going to fit me just fine. Now, I am going to reinforce my clasping by sewing back up through this a couple of times. So I'm coming out of the 8/0s on this side. I'm going to go into the 2 8/0s on this side, into the 2 11/0s, and to the 3mm round, into my clasp and pull. And then back down into the 3mm round, into the beads on the side that I have not passed through yet, and then into the 2 8/0s beneath those 2 11/0s, just like this. And one more time. We're going to cross over, go up into the 8/0s, go into the 11/0s, go into the 3mm round, if we can do it all at once. Sometimes you can't, so I'm just going to go through the 11/0s. Then I'm going to go through the 3mm round, and then I'm going to go through my clasp. Then I'm going to go back down into the 3mm round, the 2 11/0s on the other side, and the 2 8/0s also, if I can get it all at once without brutalizing my piece. Yeah, pull through, you little dude. There we go. Now I have 3 passes of thread through, and I can go ahead and tie off my piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down through this rondelle again, and I think I'm going to go down through like 3 of them. Just kind of get away from that end because I have enough thread stuff going on that end. So now I am going to go up into one of my loops and tie a knot, and then I can go back down through my main core beads to just secure it. So I'm going to go up through, well, probably all 4 of these beads. Then between the 3mm round and the 11/0 I'm coming out of, I'm just going to pass my needle underneath that, make a loop, go through my loop, and draw a knot down between those 2 beads. And then I have lost my needle again. So I'm just going to continue sewing through and knotting this off. I'll be right back and finish that for you. Okay, so let's finish. I'm coming out right where I tied my knot. I have a very short amount of thread, and I seem to have issues keeping it on my needle today. So just know that you will have to extend your thread during this project too, and I'll post a link for a video that'll show you how to do that. Now I'm going to go back into this 3mm round, and this is right where I tacked my thing together, but I'm just going to bypass that and continue going through the loop that I'm in. So I'll go through all the 11/0 seed beads here. Maybe, come here. Let me get up through these, yeah. So I just go through these, and then I can pass back through some of the center beads here, get myself down away from where I tacked things. So let me straighten out my bracelet, and I'll go back through all of these, Come on. There we go. And just find a place to push my needle out. And then you can go ahead and sew through some more of your loops, tie knots, sew through your core beads, and do that a couple of times, and then burn down your thread, and I will be back and show you exactly what your project will look like. So I'm just going to finish. I'm going to go through this little loop here, tie a knot, go through the others, and then come back through a core bead, and then just cut my thread off. Okay, so here is my finished piece. And look how pretty that is. And that's the thing about the flat spiral. It's always pretty. It's a very common, very basic stitch, and almost every beginner learns how to do it, but it never fails to impress. It's always a pretty piece, and it's just a classic go-to. So this is what my clasping looks like, and it worked really well with the little extension here. So I recommend that you do put the double 11-0s, and then let me take it off so you can see what it looks like laid out. And like I said, mine is a little different than you'll see on most all the tutorials, because I've devised a way to do my endings a little differently, and I do my tacking down of the first 2 loops during the process of making them. So in some ways, I guess that could be a little bit more confusing, but I find it much more simplified, because when you're done, you're done. You're not running around trying to put an end on this end and tacking down the first 2 loops and then tacking down these loops and making an end on this. So I think it's a little easier. However, that's up to you to decide whether you like it better or not. And this is what my little flat spiral looks like. I think it turned out really, really pretty. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you'll try making one. And if you liked it, if you could hit the subscribe button, the bell for notifications, and perhaps give me a like, I would truly appreciate it. It does help my channel, and it keeps me motivated. So anyway, I hope you liked it, and we'll see you next one. Bye-bye.